If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. All-wheel drive is overrated. Not that I don't see the merits of more traction, but far too many people out there think it's a substitute for winter tires. And of course it isn't. So why am I telling you this? Because if that's keeping the Nissan Kicks off your shopping list, it's time to think again. Go ahead and cue the comments telling me why I'm wrong already, and now let me tell you why you're missing the point completely. Because all-wheel drive is great at what it does, which is provide traction to more wheels. What it's not so great at is slowing you down any quicker. It also seems to inspire way too much confidence in wintertime, and people feel like they're invincible out on the roads. Those people are dead wrong, and so are the ones who think all-wheel drive is an excuse to skip on a set of winter tires. Generalizations aside, the all-wheel drive debate means the Kicks is going to be disappointing for some shoppers out there, but it really shouldn't be. Here's what you need to know. Yes, it's only available in front-wheel drive, but I think it's going to tick a lot of boxes for people out there looking for something that's both practical and affordable. Though I will point out that that last one is relative. Just look at the Nissan lineup. Sure, the Versa sedan is coming back, but with the Micra out of the picture, this is one of the brand's most affordable models, yet it still starts at just under 20 grand. And it's not just Nissan either. If you look at the industry as a whole, we're losing all the affordable city cars that most of us grew up on, and it's crossovers like these ones that are replacing them. But if there's one way no cheap city car can compete with this Kicks, it's when it comes to the space you get inside. I mean, just look at me in here. I've got more than enough room. Now, granted, you can't get a sunroof here, but I have tons of headroom, and the rest of the interior measures are just as impressive. You can easily fit yourself and 3 friends in here and not feel like you're trying to squeeze into a clown car. If I had one complaint about the space in the cabin, it would be when it comes to storage, especially private storage. You don't really have much space to tuck personal items if you're out for the day, and that is a bit of a problem. You don't get a console bin back here, and this glove box is pretty tiny. But otherwise, there are some decent sized door pockets in this cubby in front of the gear selector. You also get a couple USB ports back here and a few other cup holders, which is nice to have. But the irony is, if you look at those cup holders in the back, that means there's no flip down armrest in the back seat with cup holders, which is a little bit weird. And since there's no console bin here, the driver gets this flip down armrest, but the passenger doesn't get one. That I don't understand at all. I mean, passengers need a place to put their arms too. It's nice to have this ledge here to put your elbow on, but if you're in the passenger seat, you're probably going to want to put your elbow somewhere rather than have your arms just sitting in your lap awkwardly. Maybe it's just me, but I expect a little bit more in my cars, especially new ones in 2020. But one of the Kicks' best features has to be this massive trunk. If you look at something like the Hyundai Venue, it feels a lot like the Micra back here. Sure, there's enough room for a couple overnight bags, but that's about it. Whereas this thing has a ton of space for your stuff. My only complaint about it would be that once you go to fold the seats down, they don't go completely flat. Now, that's one of the ways that Nissan maximizes this trunk space, but the trade-off is that you don't have a flat load floor when you need all that extra room. Whereas if you look at the Venue, the cargo floor is adjustable, so you have all that usable space when you need it. On the flip side, how often do you need to fold the seats down in the back of your vehicle to move stuff? And I also want to point out that this is probably the smallest car I've been able to fit Patty, our pedal car that we use to test cargo capacity, in the back without folding the seats. It's really impressive just how huge that trunk is, especially compared to competitors like the Hyundai Venue. And the same goes with rear seat room. I could barely squeeze myself in the back seat of that thing, but this one has more than enough room for me to sit behind myself. The packaging is absolutely fantastic, and I really applaud Nissan for the job it's done here. If you go with a base version of the Kicks, you are giving up some pretty key features, and I don't just mean those proximity sensors for the doors. For example, you don't get heated front seats, which is a bit of a disappointment, especially considering Hyundai does include them in the base version of the Venue. The other thing is you do get this 7-inch touchscreen in the base model, but you don't get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and this is a vehicle that really needs those interfaces. This infotainment system is just very basic and not all that great to look at or use. So having those smartphone interface systems go a long way in making it just a little bit more palatable. Now you do get Bluetooth as well as an auxiliary input, so you do have that going for you if you don't get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but I say you may as well step up to one of the pricier trims to get that key feature. I'm not here to scare anyone out of the base trim, so if that's the one you're after, I say knock yourself out. And don't worry, this isn't the Micro, so you do get standard air conditioning as well as power windows and locks. But really, the SV and SR trims are where you're going to want to be when it comes to the kind of stuff you want. This automatic climate control system is really nice to have, and so are Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Ditto the 17-inch alloy wheels you get and the two-tone exterior color options you can add that really spruce up the look of this thing. I've got that going on with this one I'm testing, and I really like the look of it. Now, some of the other stuff you can get in upper trims include this fake leather upholstery in the SR model that actually feels pretty good. Though I will say the cabin in general is pretty bland and there's tons of hollow plastic in here. This one's also got some orange accent stitching, but I don't like the look of it at all. And the S and SV trims actually have some cool plastic panels that are painted silver, and they just add a little bit more character, whereas this one is really understated and it gets to a point where it looks really drab and boring. But hey, maybe that's just me. Something that isn't up for debate is all the safety stuff that Nissan absolutely nailed with this Kicks. And I'm not just talking about the 7 airbags it managed to shoehorn into this cabin. There's lots of advanced safety stuff too. You've got stuff like blind spot monitoring, rear crotch traffic alert, lane departure warning, even automatic emergency braking front and rear, and all of it standard. Though I will point out those last two are really sensitive, especially the reverse automatic braking. City dwellers take note, if you parallel park on the street overnight, this thing is definitely going to slam on the brakes before most people's comfort zone. If you're backing up nice and close to the person behind you, it's going to ram on those brakes, and it can be pretty jarring and annoying, though it is pretty easy to turn it off through this gauge cluster here. The only advanced safety stuff that doesn't come standard in the Kicks are automatic high beams, a driver alertness monitor, and this bird's eye camera that gives you a surround view of what's going on around the vehicle. Though just like the backup camera, the resolution is pretty low and it doesn't work all that well, especially in low light situations. When you consider you're getting most of that stuff for a little less than 20 grand before fees and taxes, I'd say that's pretty good value. And the ride quality is good for the money too. It's pretty smooth and quiet when you're cruising around. No, it doesn't have much personality, but I think that'll suit most shoppers in this segment just fine. I do have to give the Kicks credit because there is a good sense of control from this driver's seat. It just so happens to feel pretty sterile. And a big reason why is the powertrain. You've got a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder under the hood, and that's mated to a continuously variable transmission, and it is one of the most gutless pairings on the market today. That's the same engine you could get in the Micro, but output's been cranked up to 122 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque. But it really struggles to keep this thing moving, especially when you're already at speed. Let's say you're out here cruising on the highway and you need a little bit more momentum to pass a slow-moving truck. All you've got is a hope and a prayer as this thing buzzes and screams as it tries to squeeze the most it can out of this powertrain. This is where it could really benefit from the sport mode you can get in the Hyundai Venue that cranks up throttle response just enough to get it over the hump. No, I wasn't expecting much, but a little bit more than this would really come in handy. Especially because there's no way to manually control the transmission. There's no manual mode and there are no paddle shifters on the steering wheel, which would really come in handy when you need to pass on the highway. But then again, it's not like Nissan's trying to market this as some kind of performance beast, and you really are getting what you pay for. And that is a silver lining to the fact you can't get all-wheel drive, because I can't imagine how much worse this powertrain would be if it was trying to power 2 more wheels. When it comes to fuel economy, the Kicks is pretty good too. Nissan says it'll burn 6.6 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway, and I nailed that number earlier this week on a long country drive. The only downside is it's only got a 41-liter tank, so you're not going very far between fill-ups, but then again, if you're mainly using this to bomb around town, you should be totally fine. Right now, there are only a couple little crossovers like this on the market. You've got this thing as well as the Hyundai Venue, and the Venue currently holds the title as the cheapest one you can buy at a little over 17 grand. And that'll get you a model with a manual transmission, but Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as heated front seats. This one misses out on those features, but it gets that advanced safety stuff I talked about earlier. But really, I do think the SV and SR trims are where you want to be. And that's really where they become competitive, and they actually undercut the Venue, though not by much. If you're looking at the SV trim, it starts at about $22,000 before fees and taxes, and this loaded SR version is $24,000 before fees and taxes are included. And that means this one I'm driving, including the two-tone paint job, is still a sub $30,000 vehicle with taxes, no matter which province you live in. That's pretty impressive. Sure, it's a far cry from the $22,000 all-in price of the most expensive Micra you could buy, but it's not bad at all, even if it lacks the personality of that little hatchback. To recap, I like how roomy the cabin is in the Nissan Kicks, how much cargo room there is behind the back seats, and all the advanced safety features that come standard. I don't like that the back seats don't fold flat, the gutless powertrain, or the cheap plastic door panels. I know what you're thinking, 30 grand is still a lot of money for a vehicle that's supposed to be affordable, and I completely agree. But sadly, I think the days of cheap little runabouts are behind us, and crossovers like this are the new reality. But on the other hand, if there was ever a city car that was even half as versatile as this Kicks, I can't name it. Based on space alone, this is a massive step up from the Micra, with the added bonus of all those great active safety features too. I do wish the powertrain had just a little bit more to offer, but just like the lack of all-wheel drive, that shouldn't overshadow all the other great reasons you should get out there and drive the Kicks for yourself. Kicks! It's what's for dinner.